Does it make a government better if there's a broad representation of the people it's supposed to govern? Without a doubt.
Why should they pay even more money at all? Because they make more money? Again, you fundamentally have this idea that because somebody...
Government agencies operate are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true. And you know what? I think...
All right, we've got a really fun one today. My personal favorite commentator, Sam Seder, a progressive, did the Jubilee around it, which makes me want to do one. I'm just saying, if anyone knows who to contact, send them my way. But we're going to look at what I think are some of the best moments, the more viral moments. We're going to laugh at MAGA and how destroyed they got here and provide the context that's needed. So smash the like button so we can grow and maybe, get on Jubilee ourselves and strap in for the video.
I'm talking about Trump's rescission of these orders.
If you received a tax cut as an employer, wouldn't you hire a person of color?
Dude,
if you could pay them less?
Listen, we're talking about government agencies that do not get tax cuts. They don't. Government agencies.
They don't.
No.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do.
I'm talking about
every private and public sector gets tax cuts when you hire a person of color.
Government agencies don't pay taxes. Government agencies operate are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true. And you know what? I think
I've now watched this clip like 1,000 times minimum, and I don't know what is funnier. The confidence in being so wrong about how government agencies are funded or if they pay taxes, or Sam's face and his realization that there's no getting through to these people. Government agencies are so obviously funded through taxes. We don't have to spend time on this. The public sector just means publicly funded, as in funded through taxation, while the private sector is privately funded, as in through capital investment. This is like basic level stuff. So it's hilarious, again, how confident he is to state the opposite, which like one single book, if he had read a Cat in the Hat book, he would know this, right? Just any book. Also, we don't have tax incentives aimed at like racial hiring quotas. That's been illegal since the 60s because it would have been used for white people. We have some aimed at communities who are economically distressed, would be veterans, recipients of public assistance, those with disabilities, those living in impoverished neighborhoods, which may disproportionately affect people of color because systemic racism is real, but these are in no way geared towards race. Again, prohibited in civil rights era legislation.
Social Security pays for itself. If we do nothing, the 6.2% that your employer and your employee pays into it will pay out 78% of benefits starting in 2033.
And why is it going down? If everything's so much better, why is it only 78%?
If we raise the cap, there's a cap right now at $176,000. So for instance, if you make $100,000, you pay $6,200 into that.
A year,
a year. But if you make $4 million, do you know how much money you pay into Social Security? $6,200.
And so why should wealthy people pay a higher percentage?
No, they should pay the same percentage. 6.2 on $400,000, 6.2 on $1 million.
And why should they pay even more money at all? Because they make more money? Again, you fundamentally have this idea that because somebody...
I love Sam so much, and he's actually making a really amazing point here that I'm jealous I didn't think of first. The issues with the funding of Social Security, which only apply to the trust fund, which pertains to 18 to 22% of the benefits, are products of wealth inequality and could just be done away with tackling that. As it gets worse, as wealth inequality gets worse, more income is being held above the cap for paying into Social Security, which is at like $176,000. You're capped and you're not going to be taxed for Social Security or any of that income. So if you're making $170,000 a year, you're paying the same as a billionaire, as he shows you there. So the question from this guy shouldn't be, why should billionaires pay more? Because we're only saying that they should pay the exact same as everyone else. I don't get my income capped at a certain percent of my income or anything else. So why should billionaires get this benefit? The question should be for him to answer why he thinks billionaires should be paying a smaller percent than everyone else. Why should we be helping the billionaires as if they're the oppressed ones, as if they're the economically distressed ones, when just having the billionaires pay the same as everyone else, just erasing this income cap to where billionaires are going to get taxed at 6.2% on their billions of dollars instead of it stopping at 100,000, would guarantee 100% Social Security benefits, not just for him, but for his grandchildren and for their children and so on and so forth.
DEIA means that if you come into this agency or corporation, you're not going to be discriminated against because you don't look like everybody else, or you don't have the same like physical abilities as everybody else, or you may require handles on the bathroom or whatever it is. That's what DEIA does. But does it make a government better if there's a broad representation of the people it's supposed to govern? Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Regardless of DEI, don't we already have things in our Constitution that protect people's rights, protects people?
No.
We don't?
No.
Do we or do we not?
No, we do not. Tell me what protects people from discrimination in housing and in work and hiring or getting loans. It's all statutes. It's all statutes. And in these government agencies, there was nothing except for that order. That's why Trump just rescinded it.
I'm gonna tap out.
Exactly. Sam is too good at this. DEI is anti-discrimination. It's not and never has been affirmative action. DEI is the statutes. It's the framework that has existed since the civil rights movement to ensure that discrimination couldn't happen federally or in the private sector to the extent that the government could prevent that, because there was a failure of our founding fathers to ensure this in our Constitution or for it to be ensured in our laws. If anything, our founding fathers pushed for it, considering blacks less than a full person in the Constitution. Trump rolling this executive order back is to give more power to the corporations, to the heads of agencies he chooses, to these institutions, to further ensure that they don't reflect how America actually looks and instead reflects this white patriarchal centered view that Trump has for the country. Less representation leads to less outcomes for minority groups. We know this in healthcare. We know this in education. Like, we know this in the sectors it's been studied in. The idea it would be different for government is kind of comes from ignorance. It outright will lead to discrimination. Rolling back anti-discrimination laws will lead to more discrimination. It's kind of just common sense. And let's just never pretend that MAGA cares about merit or anything ever again. That's dead after the cabinet Trump chose. But also it should have been obvious. They went from BLM to CRT to DEI to affirmative action to this to that. It's the right just looks for anything to substitute in for the N-word and use to attack people of color, as if we're getting handouts and not working twice as hard for half the results just to have that half of results and double the work questioned twice as much as the white person who was handed everything because his uncle was rich and paid for the library in Harvard, so he got in there, and then, worked on a board here, so he got his job there. But his merit never gets questioned because being white is a merit to these people.